Rain slid down the windows like quiet tears that night. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the flickering candlelight, waiting for my mother to return from yet another failed attempt to borrow money. The bills had piled up, and I had begun to sense that something darker was closing in on us. But I never imagined it would come knocking at our door, literally. When the knock came, it wasn't timid. It was slow, deliberate, and commanding. Each thud echoed through my chest. I hesitated before answering, and the moment I opened the door, the storm outside seemed to hush. She stood there, tall, powerful, wrapped in a black trench coat that shimmered faintly under the streetlights. Her eyes were a striking gray, sharp as blades but calm as still water. "I'm looking for Maria," she said, her voice smooth and low, carrying that kind of authority that made obedience feel natural. My throat went dry. "She's not here," I managed to whisper. Her gaze lowered to me, examining every inch of my face as if reading a secret I didn't know I had. "And you are?" "Elena," I said softly. Elena, she tasted the name like fine wine. "I'm Valeria Romano." The name struck me like lightning. Everyone in our city knew that name. The Romano family controlled half of downtown, and rumors of blood and gold followed wherever they went. My knees went weak. Valeria stepped inside without asking, her boots clicking against the old wooden floor. The air seemed to shift around her. It was as though the room itself bent to her presence. "Your mother owes me a substantial amount of money," she said, leaning against the table, her coat parting just enough to reveal a glimpse of a tailored suit beneath. "I came to collect." I swallowed hard. "She's trying to pay it back." "She's been trying for months," Valeria interrupted, her tone cool but not cruel. "And I'm tired of waiting." Her gaze lingered on me again, longer this time. I felt it, hot, assessing, dangerous. "But perhaps, there's another way." My heart pounded. "What do you mean?" Valeria tilted her head, a hint of a smirk forming on her lips. "You look like her," she murmured. "Same eyes, same fire, but softer." She stepped closer until her perfume, a mix of jasmine and smoke, wrapped around me. I froze, trapped between fear and something else I couldn't name. "Instead of money," she whispered, her breath brushing against my ear, "I'll take you." The words sliced through the silence like a spell. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The rain hammered harder outside, as if the sky itself had hurt her. My world, once small and fragile, tilted towards something unknown, something dangerous, and irresistibly magnetic. I didn't know it yet, but that night was the end of my old life, and the beginning of a love that would burn hotter than any dead ever could. The drive to Valeria's mansion felt like a dream I couldn't wake from. I sat in the back seat of her sleek black car, my reflection trembling in the rain-smeared window. The city lights faded behind us, replaced by rolling hills and silence that grew heavier with every passing minute. I didn't dare speak. Valeria sat beside me, perfectly composed, her gaze fixed on the road ahead as if the world itself moved according to her will. When we arrived, the iron gates swung open without a word. The mansion was a fortress of marble and glass, glimmering faintly beneath the storm clouds. Inside, the air was warm, scented faintly with sandalwood and something more subtle, her. She shrugged off her coat, revealing a black silk shirt that clung to her like liquid night. "Follow me," she said simply, and I did. The halls were lined with art, all of it dark and intense, paintings of women with haunting eyes, sculptures that seemed to breathe. The mansion felt alive, but not in a way that frightened me. Instead, I felt drawn deeper, like a moth to fire. Valeria stopped before a set of tall double doors. "This will be your room," she said, opening them to reveal a space bigger than our entire apartment, soft lighting, crimson sheets, and a balcony overlooking the restless sea. I turned to her, words caught somewhere between confusion and defiance. "Why me? Why not take something else? Jewelry, property, anything." She smiled faintly, the kind of smile that wasn't meant to comfort. "Because, Elena, money doesn't interest me. People do. And there's something in you I can't quite define yet." Her gaze was intense, the kind that stripped away lies and left only truth. I could feel my pulse racing under her stare. "I'm not your property," I whispered, more to myself than to her. Valeria stepped closer until her presence filled the room. "No," she said softly. "You're not. Not yet." She reached out, brushing a strand of hair from my face. Her touch was gentle, unexpectedly so. It wasn't the touch of a cold-hearted boss, but of someone curious, someone who saw more than she should. "Get some rest," she murmured, her voice dropping lower. "You'll need it." And with that, she turned and walked out, her heels echoing down the marble hall. The door clicked shut behind her, leaving me in a silence thick with her scent and the sound of my own heartbeat. I sank onto the bed, my thoughts tangled between fear and fascination. Every rational part of me screamed to escape, but something deeper, quieter, whispered to stay. Because beneath her danger, there was a gravity I couldn't resist. And I knew, this was only the beginning. Morning came softly, spilling pale light across the crimson sheets. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Then I smelled it, freshly brewed coffee, the faint scent of roses drifting in from the balcony, and that quiet, commanding stillness that could only belong to her house. I rose slowly, still wearing the dress from last night, and made my way to the grand dining room. Valeria was already there. She sat at the head of the long mahogany table, a newspaper folded neatly beside her cup. Sunlight filtered through the tall windows, striking her silver watch and the diamond pin in her tie. She looked up as I entered, and for a heartbeat, her expression softened. "Good morning, Elena," she said, voice like velvet wrapped around steel. "Good morning," I murmured, unsure whether I was a guest or a captive. She gestured to the seat beside her. "Sit. Eat." The table was spread with fruit, eggs, and delicate pastries. I hesitated before sitting. The chair creaked softly, and I felt her eyes on me, not unkind, but curious, like she was studying a puzzle she wanted to solve. "You didn't sleep much," she said simply, sipping her coffee. "How would you know?" I asked before I could stop myself. Her lips curved, almost amused. "Because I didn't either." Her honesty caught me off guard. I looked up, meeting her gaze fully for the first time. There was something there, something almost human beneath the power, a flicker of weariness she tried to hide. "Why me?" I asked again, quieter this time. "You could have anything. Anyone." She leaned back in her chair, eyes never leaving mine. "I don't want anyone. I want someone who doesn't pretend. Someone who still has fire, even when she's afraid." My chest tightened. "So, this is a game to you?" "Maybe it started that way," she admitted. "But last night, when I saw the way you looked at me, I realized it wasn't only me who felt it." Her words hit harder than I expected. Because she wasn't wrong. There was something, a pull between us that defied reason. It wasn't love, not yet. It was tension, electricity, a dangerous fascination neither of us wanted to admit. Valeria stood and walked toward me, her heels slow against the marble floor. When she reached me, she placed one hand on the back of my chair, leaning just close enough for me to feel her breath. "I'm not going to hurt you, Elena," she said softly. "But I will make you see the world differently." My pulse raced. "And what if I don't want to?" Her eyes glinted with that quiet, lethal calm again. "Then I'll make you want to." She turned and walked away, leaving me trembling, not with fear, but with a strange, burning curiosity. Because the truth was undeniable now. I wasn't just her mother's dead anymore. I was becoming her weakness. 2 days passed in Valeria's mansion, and I still wasn't sure what I was to her. Not quite a prisoner, she never locked the doors, but not exactly free either. The staff treated me with quiet respect, but I could sense the whispers that followed after I left a room. Everyone knew I didn't belong there. Everyone except Valeria. That evening, she appeared at my door wearing a black suit, perfectly tailored, a diamond glinting at her throat. "Get dressed," she said simply. "We're going out." "Out?" I repeated, startled. "To dinner." Her eyes scanned me briefly, not unkindly. And wear something that makes you feel powerful. She left before I could argue. On the bed, I found a box. Inside was a deep red dress, elegant but bold, the kind of thing that seemed to breathe confidence into whoever wore it. For a moment, I just stared at it. Then, with trembling hands, I put it on. When I descended the grand staircase, Valeria was waiting at the bottom. Her gaze lifted slowly, and for the first time, she smiled, not the controlled, careful smile of a boss, but something real. You look, she paused, as if searching for the right word, dangerous. The drive into the city was quiet, but the silence between us wasn't empty. It was alive, charged. When we entered the restaurant, an upscale, candlelit place where the air itself seemed to hum with luxury, the staff greeted her with the kind of reverence reserved for royalty. Everyone looked at her. But she looked only at me. Over dinner, she spoke about her life, carefully, like revealing pieces of a puzzle but never the full picture. She told me about her late father, the business empire she inherited, and the men who doubted her because she was a woman. There was steel in her words, but also scars. You built all of this, I said quietly, gesturing to the restaurant, the power that surrounded her. Does it ever feel lonely? She met my eyes across the candlelight. Always. Something in her voice cracked through the wall I'd built. For the first time, I saw the woman beneath the title. Not the Mafia boss, not the debt collector, but someone who'd fought her whole life to be untouchable, and had forgotten what it felt like to be touched with care. When we stepped outside later, the city lights reflected in her eyes. She turned to me, her hand brushing mine, just barely, but enough to make my breath catch. You're different from everyone else, she said quietly. You don't flinch when I speak. You look at me like I'm human. Maybe because you are, I whispered. She smiled faintly, the wind tugging at her dark hair. Careful, Elena. The more you see me as human, the harder it'll be to walk away. And as her hand lingered near mine, warm and certain, I realized something terrifying and beautiful. I no longer wanted to walk away. The night after our dinner lingered in my mind like a slow-burning ember. Every word Valeria said replayed in my head, every glance, every brush of her hand. I told myself it was fascination, curiosity, maybe even fear, but deep down, I knew it was more. Days passed, and she became a constant in my world. Sometimes we ate breakfast together in silence, other times, she asked about my life before all this, my mother, my dreams, my art. She listened, really listened, which confused me more than anything. Because this was the same woman who'd walked into my home and taken me as if I were a debt to be paid. One evening, she invited me to the east wing of the mansion, a part one hadn't seen before. The room was vast, its floor polished like glass, the air scented faintly of jasmine. A record player sat in the corner, softly playing a slow, haunting melody. I didn't know you danced, I said, stepping inside. She smiled, that mysterious curve of her lips. There's a lot you don't know about me. She extended her hand. Dance with me, Elena. I hesitated only a second before slipping my hand into hers. Her palm was warm, her grip steady but gentle. She pulled me close, guiding me effortlessly across the floor. Her touch was confident, commanding, but never cruel. The rhythm of the music seemed to echo our breathing, slow and intimate. You're trembling, she murmured, her breath brushing against my temple. I'm not used to this, I whispered. To what? Feeling safe with someone who shouldn't make me feel safe. She stopped moving. Her eyes searched mine, and for a long moment, the world narrowed to just us, the music, the scent of her perfume, the weight of what was unspoken between us. Elena, she said softly, almost like a warning, you have no idea what you're doing to me. My heart pounded. Then tell me. Her jaw tightened, and I saw the struggle in her eyes. For once, she wasn't the composed, untouchable woman everyone feared. She looked like someone fighting against her own desire. I shouldn't want you, she confessed, voice trembling slightly. You were never supposed to be part of my world. And yet here I am, I said quietly. The tension between us grew unbearable, thick, electric, alive. Her hand brushed my cheek, a slow, lingering touch that made every nerve in my body awaken. But instead of closing the distance, she stepped back, breaking the spell. "Not tonight," she said, her voice low, controlled. "If I cross that line, I won't stop." Then she turned and walked away, her silhouette swallowed by the dim light. I stood there, breathless, heart racing, knowing something irreversible had begun. Because even without a kiss, without a touch too deep to undo, our hearts had already said everything our lips couldn't. The days that followed that almost kiss were the hardest. The house felt different, alive, humming with something we both tried to ignore. Every glance between us lasted too long. Every silence carried what we hadn't said that night on the dance floor. Valeria threw herself into business again. I could hear her voice echoing from her office late into the night, firm, commanding, the woman the world feared. But sometimes, when she thought no one was watching, I saw something else, the exhaustion in her shoulders, the quiet loneliness in her eyes. One evening, I brought her coffee. She was standing by the window, city lights glimmering far below. "You should rest," I said softly. She turned, surprised to see me. "You shouldn't be here," she murmured, but her voice lacked conviction. "I live here now," I said, half smiling. "You made sure of that?" For a heartbeat, she just looked at me. Then she sighed and gestured to the chair across from her. "Sit." I did. The room smelled faintly of smoke and rain. She leaned against her desk, studying me. "You don't understand what it means to be close to me, Elena. Everything I touch breaks eventually." "Maybe you've just never touched something that wanted to stay," I whispered. Her gaze sharpened, and for a long moment, neither of us moved. The air was charged, fragile, like the seconds before a storm. Then, slowly, she came around the desk and stopped in front of me. "You're not afraid anymore," she said quietly. I admitted. "But now, I think I'm only afraid of what happens if I leave." That broke something in her. Her breath hitched, the mask slipping from her face. She crouched down beside me, eyes level with mine. "You don't know what you're doing to me," she whispered, her voice raw. "Then show me," I said. She reached up, brushing her fingers through my hair, and for the first time, the touch held no command, only tenderness. It was hesitant, almost reverent. She rested her forehead against mine, and we both breathed, neither daring to move closer, neither able to pull away. "I've spent my life taking what I want," she said, her voice trembling. "But with you, I just want to be allowed." "You are," I whispered. "You always were." The words seemed to undo her. She let out a slow, uneven breath, and for a fleeting moment, I saw her completely unguarded, the powerful, feared Valeria Romano, undone not by money or betrayal, but by something as simple as honesty. When she finally stood, she turned away, eyes glistening in the dim light. "Go to your room, Elena," she said softly. "Please." It wasn't an order. It was a plea. And as I walked out, heart pounding, I realized she wasn't the only one breaking. Because somewhere between fear and fascination, I had fallen for the woman who was never meant to feel at all. The next morning came heavy with silence. The sky outside was gray, the sea restless, mirroring the chaos inside me. I didn't see Valeria at breakfast. Her chair was empty, her cup untouched. It was as though she'd vanished into that powerful, guarded world of hers again. But she hadn't vanished completely. Because even when she wasn't there, her presence lingered, in the scent of coffee, in the echo of her footsteps, in the way my heartbeat seemed to change whenever her name crossed my mind. By afternoon, I couldn't take the waiting anymore. I found her in the garden, a place I'd never seen her before. She stood among the white roses, phone pressed to her ear, her tone sharp and cold as steel. "If they cross the port again, end it. I don't care who they are." Her power was undeniable, frightening even. Yet, as soon as she hung up and turned toward me, I saw something flicker behind her composure. Something human. You shouldn't be out here, she said, tucking her hands into her pockets. I could say the same to you, I replied softly. You look tired. A faint smile touched her lips, though it didn't reach her eyes. Tired isn't something I get to be. I stepped closer, feeling the tension between us like static in the air. Then let me be here. Just for a moment. You don't have to be the boss right now. Her jaw tightened. You don't understand, Elena. If anyone finds out how I feel about you, it won't just be dangerous for me. It'll destroy you. I met her gaze steadily. You already destroyed my life when you took me from my home. But somehow, I don't regret being here. The words slipped out before I could stop them, and for a long, heavy moment, neither of us breathed. Her eyes softened, that rare look she tried so hard to hide. Why do you make it so hard to keep my distance, she murmured. Maybe because I'm not afraid of you anymore. A single tear welled in her eye, barely visible, but I saw it. She turned her face away, her voice quieter than I'd ever heard it. You should be. The wind picked up, tossing her dark hair across her face, and she looked suddenly small against the gray sky, a woman built on strength, fighting feelings she couldn't afford. I reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. For the first time, her fingers laced with mine, her grip uncertain but real. Then let me be afraid, I said softly. Just, don't send me away. She exhaled slowly, closing her eyes. I should, she whispered. For your sake. For mine. But she didn't. Instead, she pulled me closer, resting her forehead against mine, the roses swaying around us. It wasn't a kiss, not yet. It was a promise waiting to happen, a war neither of us wanted to win. And as thunder rolled in the distance, I realized that love, in her world, wasn't gentle. It was a storm, fierce, consuming, and beautiful. And I was already standing in the eye of it. That night, the storm finally broke. Rain lashed against the mansion windows, and thunder rolled over the sea like the sound of something ancient waking. I couldn't sleep, not with the memory of Valeria's touch still tingling in my hand, not with her words echoing in my mind. When I finally left my room, the house was dark except for the faint light spilling from her office door. I hesitated only a moment before stepping closer. She was there, of course, standing by the window, the storm light flickering over her face. Her jacket was off, sleeves rolled up, revealing the scars on her arms, faint, like old battles won and lost long before I ever arrived. You should be in bed, she said without turning around. So should you, I whispered. But you never rest, do you? A quiet laugh escaped her. Rest isn't part of my world. I stepped closer. Then maybe it's time to change your world. That made her turn. Her eyes met mine, tired, fierce, but full of something raw she couldn't hide anymore. You don't understand what I've done, Elena. What I've had to be. People disappear because of me. I don't care what you've done, I said softly. I care who you are when you look at me. The air between us tightened, heavy with everything unsaid. She took a slow step toward me, and I didn't move. When she finally spoke, her voice trembled, not from fear, but from everything she'd kept locked away. I've spent my life controlling everything, she said. Every deal, every word, every breath. And then you walked into my world, and suddenly I can't control anything anymore. Maybe you're not supposed to, I whispered. Her breath hitched. You think this is love? I don't know what it is, I admitted. But I know it's real. Something in her finally gave way. She crossed the space between us and took my face in her hands, not roughly, but with the desperation of someone who'd been starving for too long. Her thumb brushed my cheek, tracing the edge of a tear I hadn't realized was there. Elena, she breathed, my name sounding almost like a prayer. You don't belong in my darkness. Then let me bring you some light, I said. For a moment, we just stood there, the world outside raging, thunder echoing through the walls, and then she pulled me against her. It wasn't a kiss of possession or power. It was a surrender, quiet, trembling, full of every feeling she'd buried beneath her strength. Her arms wrapped around me, holding me as though she was afraid I'd vanish if she let go. And for the first time, the woman who ruled with fear finally allowed herself to feel. When she pulled back, her voice was barely a whisper. "You've ruined me." I smiled faintly through the tears. "Maybe I've just shown you you're still human." Outside, lightning split the sky, bright, blinding, like the universe itself had witnessed the moment. And in that flash, I knew something certain and terrifying. Whatever came next, danger, love, loss, we'd already. The morning after the storm, the mansion was quiet, too quiet. The air felt heavier than usual, as if the world itself knew that something fragile had changed forever. Valeria and I had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed, and deep down, I knew her world would not let us exist peacefully. She was gone when I woke, her side of the bed cold, her scent still lingering on the pillow. On the nightstand lay a single folded note in her elegant handwriting: "Stay in your room. Whatever happens today, don't come looking for me." Of course, I didn't listen. By noon, the tension in the mansion was unbearable. I could hear muffled voices, men shouting, the sound of hurried footsteps echoing through the marble halls. Something was wrong. I followed the noise until I reached the main hall, where Valeria stood, facing 3 men in dark coats. Her expression was carved from stone, but her hands, those strong, steady hands, were clenched at her sides. "You don't threaten me in my own house," she said, her tone low and lethal. One of the men stepped forward, his voice dripping with arrogance. "You've gone soft, Romano. Word is, you've been distracted. Over a girl." Valeria's jaw tightened, her gaze flicking toward me for the briefest moment, enough for them to notice. The man smirked. "Ah. So it's true." Before I could react, he reached for the gun beneath his coat. But Valeria moved first, faster than I thought possible. A single shot echoed through the hall, followed by silence so deep it felt endless. The man fell. The others backed away instantly, their faces pale. "Get out," Valeria hissed, voice shaking with fury. "Tell your boss if he ever touches what's mine again, I'll burn his entire empire to ash." They didn't wait to argue. Within seconds, they were gone, and the heavy doors slammed shut behind them. When the echo faded, Valeria turned toward me. Her eyes were wild, part fear, part relief. "I told you to stay in your room," she said, her voice cracking. "I couldn't," I whispered. "Not when I thought you were in danger." She exhaled shakily, stepping closer. "You shouldn't have seen that." "I've seen enough to know who you are," I said softly. "And I still choose you." Her breath caught. "You don't understand, Elena. Loving me means living with this, the blood, the risk, the fear. I can protect you from the world, but not from me." "Then don't protect me," I said, my voice trembling. "Just let me stand beside you." The strength in her expression faltered. She reached for me, her touch trembling for the first time. "You're not afraid?" "Of you?" "Never." For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she pulled me close, fiercely, protectively, as if she was holding on to the one piece of her life that still made her feel human. The storm had passed, but in its wake, something new remained, not peace, not safety, but truth. The truth that love, even when born in the darkest places, could still mean redemption. As we stood there,